Hi there, it's been a while. With the release of Godot 4.2 just around the corner, I did what I had to do and dug through every proposal on the Godot 4.3 milestone. On my way through that never-ending rabbit hole, I made a list of the best stuff coming to Godot 4.3. Of course, this is not a finite list, and just because your proposal/pull request does not appear here, it's not trash. So let's start with number 1. Drag and drop between SubViewports and windows. Have you ever tried to drag and drop something from one SubViewport into another in your Godot application? Well, you probably were never as disappointed as you were in that moment, because currently you cannot. However, there's light in the dark, as Godot 4.3 and Sauerman fixed this. Number 2. Export storage annotation. There's a new export annotation added by Dalesev. Export storage allows you to export variables that then will not show up in the inspector. I don't really get for what this will be useful, but apparently it's useful for serializing data in editor plugins. If someone can explain the whole thing to me in the comments, you will receive a cookie. Number 3. Script editor hover hints. Do you hate it to go to the documentation each time you want to see the parameters of a function? Well, Spartan 322 and Thanky Naties have you covered. Beginning in 4.3, when you hover over a function, a small pop-up will appear that shows the same description as the docs as well as the parameters of the function. The whole thing also works for variables. Number 4. Tool button annotation. Yes, finally, you can add a custom button in the Godot inspector. This is fire. And also made by them. No more exporting a boolean with the setGet function and abusing it as a button. To do this, you can use addTool_button, providing a description text and an icon, as well as defining the function that the button should execute when pressed. Number 5. Vsync editor setting. Calinu implemented an editor setting to enable and disable Vsync independently of your Godot project. The pull request says that this can be used to increase editor responsiveness and decrease input lag. Number 6. Motion draw disabled render mode for spatial shaders. When using a quad in front of the camera for post-processing and having TAA enabled, you can see some jitter in the rendered image. This PR by EmberDev fixes this with the addition of a new render mode for materials called Motion Draw Disabled. This will not write motion vectors and thereby does not confuse the TAA and does not produce jitter in the image. Number 7. Search keywords in class reference. Godot's inbuilt class reference is a really nice thing, especially if you work offline a lot of times. Though it has one big issue. The search is kinda bad, and you have to type in the exact name of the thing you were looking for if you want to find anything. Apparently, I'm not gonna try to pronounce this name, was so annoyed by this issue that they decided to add keywords to the search. That means that if you, for example, search for ragdoll, instead of nothing showing up, the results will now display physical bones, as these can be used to make ragdolls. Number 8. Better search in create dialog. Ever notice that the search in the create new node dialog is kinda bad? Well, Stygian H did notice that and made it better. Thanks. I think the old one really sucked. Number 9. Project-wide node groups. Wait, but Godot already has node groups. Yes, but have you ever noticed how these groups are on a per scene basis? Project-wide node groups are stored in the Godot project itself and can be changed through the project settings. This is thanks to Dark Messiah. To assign them, go to the node panel, then to groups and assign them as normal. Number 10. The Godot editor remembers window mode, screen and window size and position on restart. This does exactly what the title says. High-res screen users can thank Spanzeri for this. Number 11. A patch system. Now you too can create a cyberpunk game in Godot, release it in a bad and broken state and then patch it up to being a mediocre game in 2 years. You can now export a PCK file for your games as a patch. This works by the exporter comparing 2 PCK files and then creating a third, new one, that only contains the stuff that changed between the first and the second one. Sadly, this PR does not allow you to treat your devs like shit, but apparently CDPR did not need allowance from anyone to do that either, so feel free to do so. Don't. Number 12. Indirect collision shapes. Ever raged at Godot and the fact that collision shapes need to be an immediate child of a physics object? Well, Aaron Franke is here to make you calm down. Collision shapes can now be indirect children of physics objects. Number 13. Vertex shading. Finally, all 3 of Godot's renderers have vertex shading. Vertex shading is a shading technique where instead of for every pixel, Light is only calculated per vertex. Thank you, Emiya, or however that name is pronounced. Number 14. Exported arrays now have property hints. Arrays now have hints like range and stuff. Ableton is a legend. Number 15. Secondary light and advanced import settings. You know that window that pops up when you double click a certain asset in your Godot file system? That's called the advanced import settings. Let's make it short. It needs some work. Like for example a second light. Now you can view your 3D models in even more light and detail. Thanks to Geronimo Schreier. Let there be light. That's probably what he thought. Probably. Maybe not. Number 16. Render hooks. Godot's post and mid-processing was pretty bare bones, until Bastian Oli stepped in and made what seemed impossible possible. You can now hook into Godot's Vulkan renderer with GDScript. This works by the renderer providing callbacks for certain rendering steps, and the hooks subscribing to those callbacks. Then your code gets executed and the rendering continues. Number 17. Direct 3D 12 rendering driver. One of the big things in Godot 4 was the transition from OpenGL to Vulkan. While that was a good thing, this does mean that certain devices, like for example Xboxes, who cannot use Vulkan, became even more not supported from Godot. The goal is to have a DirectX renderer that's up to par with the Vulkan one, and can act as a drop-in replacement. Currently the DirectX rendering driver is slower than the Vulkan one, but performance was not the main focus. Instead they focused on getting it feature complete and stable. Wondering who they are? Well, it's Random Shaper. Number 18. 3D MSAA and scaling in GLES 3. The GLES 3 compatibility renderer now has 3D MSAA and bilinear upscaling. Bastian Oli is doing some great work here to get the renderer's feature complete. Number 19. Warn if a variable is not updated in the setter function. The Godot editor will now warn you if you not assign the value parameter from your set function to the variable. Guess who thought Godot's setget system was broken because the variable would not set when using setget? Hypocognitive could have saved me thousands of hours of debugging. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating. A bit. Just a bit. Number 20. Icons for certain main menu items. Vsync added icons to some options in the scene, project and editor main menus. Let that sink in. Number 21. Modify global transform when node is not in tree. You can now, finally, set the transform of a node 3D when it's not in the scene tree. No more adding a newly created node into the tree just to modify its position. Thank you so much, Ekienmega. Number 22. Colored margin in inspector for arrays and dictionaries. This PR by Arjikov makes the inspector more readable by coloring the margins of arrays and dictionaries in different, more contrasty colors. Number 23. OpenXR Hand node editor icon. The OpenXR Hand node now has an editor icon. Everyone send a virtual high five to Kalinu for making this. Number 24. Ensure parameter hints are generated for a new function. If you have had issues with parameter hints not showing up in Godot's code editor, then Garcia made this for you. Number 25. Fix 3D jitter. 3D physics body jitter just got eliminated by Geekotron. I guess you could also just use the Jolt physics add-on for Godot. Tutorial on how to install it in the top right corner, by the way. But still, very cool. Number 26. Bone visualization in advanced import settings. Geronimo Schreier, not related to Jason Schreier, just made sure every bone gets leaked in the advanced import settings. Number 27. MeshOptimizer update resulting in better LODs. Sioux did what Windows users fear: updates. They updated the version of the MeshOptimizer library Godot uses, which results in better and cleaner looking LODs. Number 28. Material drag and drop fixed. If you didn't know, the material of an object was constantly being reset to none when dragging a material over it. Thanks for fixing this. Number 29. Revert color icon on color picker's old sample. Something small for the end. Kalinu added a revert button on the part of the color picker that shows the color before changing it. This makes it more clear that by clicking on it, you can revert to the old color. And that was about it. Of course, there's a bunch of bug fixes and other smaller tweaks and stuff coming to Godot 4.3. I just wanted to highlight the big stuff. I'm also thinking about making videos about Godot updates, like what's new in Godot 4.2 Beta 5 for example. Let me know in the comments if that would interest you. Like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.